Breaking right now, Prince Andrew loses everything. In a bombshell statement in the last hour, King Charles has stripped his brother of his title of prince, booted him out of Royal Lodge, and effectively ended any hopes he had of a public rehabilitation. This is a seismic and historic decision as the pressure was being heaped on the cancer-stricken monarch. Some even saying the future of the British monarchy itself is at stake. So I've got a huge amount to get to today, including the secret briefing from Buckingham Palace that has been provided to the mainstream media. I'm going to take you through it in full because you know I believe in that transparency. Then we have the best panel of royal experts to take you through this news. Our royal mastermind, Angela Levin, editor of the Royal News Network, Brittany, and Royal YouTube sensation, according to Taz. So we have all angles of this covered tonight. But first, let's get to this statement from Buckingham Palace that dropped at 7 p.m. His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. His lease on Royal Lodge has to date provided him with legal protection to continue in residence. Formal notice has now been served to surrender the lease, and he will move to alternative private accommodation. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. So Angela Levin, King Charles also speaking there on behalf of his wife, Queen Camilla. One wonders why on earth he didn't do something like this a fortnight ago when his son, Prince William, was urging him to do so. Is this enough, Angela, to save Charles's reign?
I hope so. I think so. There will be a line of nasties who will keep attacking, but they would do that with lots of things, won't they? But I think that this is a huge thing, absolutely huge. And right at the end, with the last paragraph, when they said, they say, I'm so sorry for everyone, I thought, oh gosh, surely they're not going to say that about Andrew. But it wasn't. It was about anybody who suffered from what he might have done. And I think that is incredibly powerful. It's not giving him one tiny excuse for anything. He's got this now bang, bang, bang. And I mean, if you think, why not 2 weeks ago? He couldn't go and do all this before or just after he went to see the Pope. I mean, you've got to have things timed, haven't you? And it's very careful. I think it's a huge surprise and a very welcome one.
Brittany, is there any type of historical precedence for this?
Not as far as I'm aware. And this is definitely sort of a new route to go down, and definitely one that sort of breaks the mold. Because I think many people who have titles in the UK or elsewhere think that they're untouchable. And I think we had the case in Denmark and now the case in the UK where it proves that that's not true. Obviously, we do have the case of King Edward, who became the Duke of Windsor. But beyond that, there's no real precedence for this. And so Charles is very much kind of setting a standard here. And it's one that he really needed to have, because what has happened is that there were no consequences for Andrew for so long that his behavior got more and more out of control over the decades. And so I think Charles doing this now shows that other royals in the future, now and in the future, that they step out of line, there will be consequences to that.
Tash, according to Taz, your reaction to this bombshell?
I mean, this is hugely significant. I mean, I haven't known of any other member of the royal family to be stripped in such a way, apart from, I think it was Prince Charles Edward back in 1919. There was an act of parliament where he was stripped of his princely title because he was fighting against England in World War One. So I mean, this is incredible to see his prince title taken. And to be honest with you, it shocked me. I expected the dukedom to go. But the fact that Andrew hasn't apparently, according to reports, put up a fight and he's gone along with this, it begs the question, what else is there left to come out? The fact that Andrew is no longer fighting and digging his heels in, and the king has felt this need to go this extra step.
Indeed. And Tash, look, there's a lot of background that I'm going to get to. We do know that Andrew is going to move to the Sandringham estate. Critically, that moves him out of Windsor, out of the Royal Lodge, and King Charles will be paying privately for his accommodation there. Significantly, though, because do you remember this outrage earlier in the week when the Sun revealed this concept of potentially also providing a pad for Fergie, Sarah Ferguson, potentially Adelaide Cottage, the current home of William and Catherine? She's kicked out. There's no accommodation for her, nothing provided for her. So her meltdown and breakdown will no doubt continue.
Well, I can't say I'm too shocked at that. I mean, she only sold her Belgravia mansion, let's be honest. I mean, she suffered a loss, but 4.5 million, I don't think many members of the public will feel any strong sort of sympathy towards her. She can afford to buy a nice little private place herself. Her daughters are also millionaires themselves. They've got nice, comfortable marriages. I'm pretty certain that Fergie will be taken care of. But it doesn't fall down to the royal family anymore, and it certainly should never fall down to the taxpayers. She's been divorced from Andrew for several decades. So, yes, I'm not surprised. And I think that the king, if he even offered a slight show of willingness to offer Fergie something, that would also backfire on him. And the fact that he has done this to his brother, I think this is really good, and it needed to be done for his reign. This shows a sign of strength when many people have been saying he is a weak king.
Indeed. Now, what is also significant is that Beatrice and Eugenie will not lose their princess titles. And I think what matters there is that it shows that Prince William was able to talk some sense into those two young ladies and get them to put pressure on their father. Does it make sense, Angela, that they are not punished for their parents' crimes?
No, I think it's absolutely right. They can be called the grandchildren of the late Queen, and that enables them to have a title. So that's done within the sort of how it appears with the royals. But the other thing is that William likes them very much. They help him when there's events coming on in the royal family, and he doesn't obviously feel that they have been taken in the wrong way, that they are okay. And I think that would be very good. If they had wanted to leave it all the titles, that would also have been okay. But actually, if they want to stay members of the royal family with the title, then I think they deserve it. You can't actually blame the children on what their parents have done in any way, can you? So I don't see why this should be different. I think what Sarah has done with her children when she takes them out and one man sucking her toes and another she meets when he comes out of prison, and they're 17 and 18 and 19, and he told Epstein to have a lovely party after he came out. I think that was absolutely disgusting, because that's the age of the girls that he liked to go with. But they didn't ask to go there. They went there because of their mother. Probably they didn't even know what was going to happen. So I think that's a bit of a black mark on the plate. But I think otherwise that they seem very happy, calm, satisfied people. And I hope that they asked their husbands what they thought about it all. And so they came together with what they should be doing, because it's not easy being in the royal family. But I think this has worked very well.
Okay, well, look, I'm going to break a bit of news now because I can reveal that a secret briefing document has been sent by Buckingham Palace explaining the motivations behind this decision. Now, no one in the mainstream media will quote this document. I believe you have a right to know exactly what is being said and exactly the justification behind it. So I'm going to take you through this, then we'll get reaction from our superstar royal panel. So Buckingham Palace has said tonight that this removal process applies to the prince's titles of Prince, the Duke of York, the Earl of Inverness, Baron Killalay, and the style, His Royal Highness. The honours affected are Prince Andrew's Order of the Garter and Knight Grand Cross of the Victorian Order. However, and I think this is very critical, and I have some of my own reporting on this, Buckingham Palace has made a request to be mindful that there remains a duty of care for the well-being and welfare of all family members. We would ask you to be alive to this consideration in all your reporting and commentary. Now, Tash, there's much more to come from Buckingham Palace, and I'll go through it, but I just wanted to take one moment here. And some people will criticize me for this, but I know for a fact that in the past, Andrew has been under psychiatric care as a result of the pressure that comes from something like this. Clearly, Buckingham Palace is making the point to the mainstream media tonight that they believe Prince Andrew remains a suicide risk. And given that he has been found guilty of no crime and there are processes to go through, that feels to me like a fair thing that Buckingham Palace is doing, just reminding everyone of that. This is a man who has now lost everything. But Tash, I do appreciate there'll be some people sitting there saying, well, we should have no sympathy, etc., etc. But I just wanted to make that point and be transparent.
I mean, their Majesties put in the statement that their, feelings, obviously, everything still remains. The most important people in all of this are always the victims of any form of abuse. So they are making it clear to the public that that's why, that he is in so many ways being punished and held to account. But we also need to remember, whilst there is this absolute fever with the media at the moment, they are out for blood. It is continuous. And Andrew has not been convicted of any crime. He hasn't been convicted of any crimes. He's had an accusation against him with regards to the abuse from Virginia Giuffre. And there hasn't been any evidence that has allowed anybody to arrest Andrew, to hold him to account. And I think that he is very much being used as a scapegoat in many ways, because whenever Epstein is ever brought up, or any of these horrific crimes that were committed against the victims, Andrew's name is always at the forefront of it. And as we know, there are plenty of people that had relationships, the exact same friendship with the exact same man, spent time on the islands and the flights. And I do believe that Andrew has lost everything. But over and over, Andrew lost it all when this all came out. Andrew has been humiliated publicly when this first came out. And I'm not saying people should give him a free pass, but how much more do people want? He is being punished. He is now having the ultimate punishment for a man that has lived his life, living to the max with every privilege that is possible for a member of the royal family. And now he is just going to be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. For me personally, I think that this is enough.
Yeah, I mean, indeed. Okay, let me get back to this briefing document. Now, remember, this is a secret briefing document that Buckingham Palace has provided to the mainstream media, but the mainstream media won't tell you that they're quoting from the briefing document because these are how these weird relationships work, and maybe that's what actually needs to be broken down here. This document confirms that as daughters of the son of a sovereign, HRH Princess Beatrice and HRH Princess Eugenie retain their titles in line with King George V's letters patent of 1917. Now, Brittany, that does lead you to believe that there is going to have to be a letters patent here introduced to strip Andrew of his titles.
I mean, that's entirely possible. We don't know because this is sort of, again, we're breaking a bit of new ground here. And so this hasn't been done really since the early 1900s. So we'll see how this process goes through with Charles and Andrew. But I think it's so important that Charles has made this step and is also protecting Beatrice and Eugenie. I don't think the sins of the parents should be punished on the girls. I think that's completely unfair. And so, as far as we're aware, the girls have maybe some like shaky connections, you could say, but beyond that, they have done a very good job representing the monarchy in sort of peripheral ways. And so I'm glad they're able to keep that going. But when it comes to this letters patent issue, it's just a question of how this will come about. And I think it is another opportunity for Charles here to make some further adjustments as well. One of the things I have suggested is that in order to have a royal title, you need to actually live and be educated in the UK as a child. That is the stipulation in Sweden. I think that's something that the Brits should definitely adopt as well. That addresses the Harry and Meghan and their children issue, and it protects the Wales's kids and potentially their future children as well. So I think that's something where this is Charles's moment to really enact some changes that I think can have a great impact on the future. But at the same time, he definitely needs to approach this with caution and try to do as much of a holistic approach as possible, because he can make some good changes or things that can go south down the line. But I think this is a great opportunity for Charles to really make his mark as king.
And I'm interested by what you posted on X there, Brittany, your initial reaction to the news. You say this is a disaster for Harry and Meghan, as they're definitely next. And Tash, I mean, I guess one of my disappointments is that this isn't now all being done in one fell swoop. It's dealing with the Andrew and Fergie problem, but it's going to leave Harry, Meghan, Archie and Lily to William, to a King William, it looks like.
I mean, there's still time yet. We may be surprised. I mean, this has shocked a lot of us, really, not expecting the king to make this sort of harsh decision. And I completely agree with what Brittany's just said. This is the time now to stipulate how people have titles that they're meant to carry forward, titles when they're meant to be returned to the crown. It's a basic thing, the fact that the Swedish royal family do this. If you are to be a titled member of the royal family, I view the job as job titles. Harry and Meghan were given the dukedom. Well, Harry was given the dukedom because he and Meghan were meant to be joining the royal family as senior working royals. It was a way to publicly cement their position as part of the working machinery, the cogs that make the monarchy go round. When they quit, and they did it in such a horrific way, really, and all of the things that they've done since, they're not deserving of those titles. But as for their children, they're American citizens growing up in a country that fought a war to remove themselves from the monarchy. And I think, if anything, if Harry and Meghan are so concerned about their children growing up and being able to have a normal life in America, calling them a prince and a princess isn't really going to wash. And they have no reason to be a prince and a princess because they are never going to become working members of the royal family. They're not going to be able to decide when they turn 18 years old with some sort of Hollywood upbringing, being brought up as a celebrity child, that all of a sudden they want to be a prince and a princess of the United Kingdom. They have no reason to have those titles, and Harry and Meghan have no reason to retain the dukedom. They are little more than celebrities. People do not even view them in America, the UK, and all around the world anymore.
And they are a danger. They are a danger. Honestly, take this lesson from what Fergie and Andrew have done over the past 3 decades and do not let history repeat. Angela Levin, just want to ask you about this piece of news from Richard Eden of the Daily Mail in the past few minutes, who says, bizarrely, it would appear from the Buckingham Palace statement that Prince Andrew remains 8th in line to the throne and a Councillor of State. So legally, he could still stand in for King Charles if necessary. Do you think that's right, or is it possible that the letter's pattern would address those issues?
I don't think that will ever happen. The thing is that they've now got 6 people that could stand in instead of the king if he needs help. But they only ever need 4. And the king got this amazing okay from all sorts of people that Princess Anne would do it as well, and Prince Edward would take over, so that Harry wouldn't come and neither would Andrew. So they're not going to be used. There won't be a possibility that they can ever do it, that unless, everybody was ill at the same time, and then you can do something from your bed and say something. No, I think that we don't have to worry too much about that. It's quite small and it doesn't matter that very much.
Okay, I'm going to get back to the secret briefing document from Buckingham Palace, which no one else is telling you about tonight. And how this works, it's absolutely fascinating, is there are a whole load of questions that Buckingham Palace have asked themselves, but almost as if thinking this is the questions that the media are going to ask them. But we learn a lot through this. So the first question, why are these actions necessary? Remember, this is formal briefing from Buckingham Palace to the Royal Rota. While Prince Andrew continues to deny the accusations against him, it is clear that there have been serious lapses of judgment. So that is by far the strongest stance that the king has taken against his own brother thus far. Question, why act now? Why not sooner? His Majesty acted swiftly following recent developments which led to his brother relinquishing the use of his titles and honours in the most immediate and efficient way possible. A longer-term resolution to all the aligned issues was always going to take a little longer to enact due to the complexities of the legal and constitutional position, but the necessity of further action was never in doubt. These developments have required time, legal and constitutional expertise, and support from the wider family to bring about. It has always been hoped they could be achieved without the need to impose on parliamentary time. Now, I'm sorry, Tash, I just don't believe that. I don't believe what they're saying there, because if that were the case, then that announcement 2 weeks ago made no sense. So again, this is a PR spin for Charles, I think, to look as if, oh, well, we always intended to go further. No, you didn't. You hoped that him voluntarily agreeing not to use the Duke of York title was going to be enough. Now, of course, Prince William knew it was never going to be enough. And what's interesting here is I think the reference to the wider family, support from the wider family, Tash, that can only be a reference to William, because everyone else is irrelevant in this. Anne's irrelevant in this. Edward's irrelevant in this. It's about what William wanted.
It does make me wonder, is there something else that's going to come forward? Because Andrew has been digging his heels in. It seems, like you said, why put that statement out a couple of weeks ago and now only act on it a few weeks later? We had palace sources say that Parliament were not going to debate this in the House of Commons. And then all of a sudden you have Keir Starmer backs it. The MPs are in fact going to use their parliamentary position to be able to do so. And I just feel like that there is something else that perhaps is potentially going to break and someone's trying to head it off at the pass. Because I feel that if the king felt so strongly that he was going to take this action, why not take that action a few weeks ago? Prince William, many people believe, is already taking hold of the reins behind the scenes, taking
100%.
hold of things he shouldn't be doing, because obviously the king is still very unwell. He is still battling cancer. And Prince William, I personally feel that he has got a lot of Prince Philip in him. And I do believe that he is definitely going to be the stronger iron fist behind the scenes. So I do believe that Prince William has been involved in the talks regarding this, but I do find the sudden turnaround questionable. And I am wondering if something else is lurking.
Tash, thank you so much. You're going to be back with us on Outspoken tomorrow. But what we're going to do now is also bring in our royal YouTube sensation, P. Dinah, to give her reaction on this. But before we get to her, let's get back to this briefing document from Buckingham Palace because it's just absolutely fascinating. So the next question is, how does this differ from what you announced previously regarding titles? And Buckingham Palace says this is a formal removal process. Removing the Duke of York from the peerage role will ensure that the title cannot be used officially. Previously, it was announced that Prince Andrew had agreed to no longer use his titles and honours. Buckingham Palace then says, how does the removal of the titles work? And the answer, the Dukedom of York is a peerage. His Majesty is sending royal warrants to the Lord Chancellor to secure the removal of the Dukedom of York from the peerage role and the title of Prince and style of Royal Highness. The subsidiary titles of Inverness and Killyleagh are similarly affected. Buckingham Palace asks, what was the Lord Chancellor Minister of Justice's role? The Lord Chancellor is responsible for maintaining the role of the peerage. His Majesty is sending royal warrants to the Lord Chancellor to secure the removal of the Dukedom of York from the peerage role and the title of Prince and style of Royal Highness. But then a critical question, why have you not opted to abolish the dukedom via an Act of Parliament? That would take up precious parliamentary time, preventing Parliament from focusing on urgent national issues. The King is doing all he can within his own royal prerogative. And then critically, has His Majesty done this against Andrew's will? Buckingham Palace answers, His Majesty has initiated the process. His brother has not objected. The question, when and how will Andrew's change of name take effect? With immediate effect. So, P. Dinah, great to have you on Outspoken on this night of seismic news. If you are just joining us, of course, in the past hour, there has been a statement from the King announcing that his brother, Prince Andrew, will be stripped of all his titles and honours, simply known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, from this moment on, booted out of Windsor Lodge. Fergie's also booted out. P. Dinah, your reaction?
Well, I think this is the beginning of a process that is going to happen with others that are outside the UK. I think you have to do this in the UK so that the American public can understand this has happened, a seismic thing that has happened in the UK, so that when it does become time for those that are outside the UK in California, then it's more accepted. It's not looked at as something racial. And I think this is just how they're trying to do it so that it's going to be seamless when it does become time for those in California to have theirs removed. I think it's great. I think it's the beginning of a process that they're doing because there's going to be more to come. That's what I think.
Angela Levin, really interesting, isn't it, that Charles clearly didn't want this to get to Parliament. So he's been working behind the scenes to find a way to keep this out of Parliament because, of course, the parliamentary scrutiny of the royal family is not something a monarch ever wants, for obvious reasons, Angela, because it opens them up to all types of scrutiny. Is this the right decision, the fact that it looks like this is being able to be done via the Minister of Justice, who, by the way, the Lord Chancellor, that is David Lammy, who is the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He seems to be the one. And obviously he's just taken on that job, Angela.
Yeah. Oh dear. Well, I think one reason is that the Lib Dems in the government have been very aggressive now. You know, what's going on, what's happening, the whole thing's going to be a mess. And the Labour Party are beginning to get into that as well. And I think what the King absolutely doesn't want is a big fight between the different parties, which would be very humiliating for him. And so it was much better if they're getting their feet under the table if he takes the table right away and does it himself as far as he can. Absolutely, the things that he can do, he's going to do. I just thought as well, though, that Virginia's book that
Virginia
came out,
Giuffre.
yes, which was so shocking and so frightening and so terrible. I think that's had a lot of power. And I think that the king, and I do know the Queen Camilla would find that all so dreadful about what he's been doing, or she alleges that he's been doing to all sorts of girls and women, and what they've been happening under Epstein's hands. And I think that sort of gives you a shock. They've been going on working out quite how they can do it, and then suddenly, bang, they just can't do that. They have to get going now because there's been a book, and I think there's several people who are
And
actually
there's a
dying.
lot of people as well saying that more is to come. I mean, just today, this Republican organization, Republic, has announced that it has initiated a private prosecution against Prince. It's funny. Can't call him that anymore, can we? Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. We no longer call this man Prince Andrew, by the way. And a private prosecution has now been launched against Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And remember, Andrew Lowney, the author of the book entitled, was here on Outspoken not that long ago at all, just a few days ago, saying that his belief is that Prince Andrew will end up in prison. He really does see that happening now. But look, I want to get back to this Buckingham Palace briefing note because this is all new information and it's absolutely fascinating. So I'll take you through a bit more and then get you to react to some of this, Brittany. Will Andrew need to change his birth certificate? Interesting question, because I presume Prince Andrew would be on the birth certificate, and they say no, it applies forthwith, not retrospectively. Were the government consulted about this? Yes, this has been done in consultation with the relevant government authorities. The government has been clear it is constitutionally proper for His Majesty to take this action and that it supports the decision taken. So that answers really where Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, stands on this. Then we come to Royal Lodge and all of the issues over Royal Lodge. And Buckingham Palace says, you say the lease has been surrendered. Has Andrew actually moved out? And if not, when will he do so? Formal notice has today been served to surrender the lease. The move will take place as soon as practicable. So he's going to be out ASAP. Wasn't the cast iron lease the issue? And if you're just joining in, by the way, I've procured this secret briefing document from Buckingham Palace about this decision today, so I'm just going through it. Buckingham Palace says the cast iron lease has indeed been an issue. A lease has legal force and the king must, by oath, respect the laws of his own country. It has required negotiation between all parties for Prince Andrew to serve formal notices to surrender the lease. So Prince Andrew did have to come on board. What about the funds that Andrew was due if he moved out early? That is a matter for the Crown Estate. It is possible remedial works may affect any compensation due. Where will Prince Andrew go? Prince Andrew will move to a property on the private Sandringham estate. We won't be giving further details regarding which property. Any future accommodation will be privately funded by the king. Will Prince Andrew get an income from the king? Prince Andrew remains the brother of the king. His Majesty will make appropriate private provision for him. Will Prince Andrew have other sources of income? That is a matter for Andrew. So, Brittany, this is absolutely fascinating stuff. We are learning so much from this briefing document. This is the first time I've seen it, obviously, but my clear reading from that, I don't know if you agree, is that King Charles is making it clear he will fund Andrew for the rest of his life, but it will be done so privately, which I guess takes the pressure off, you would hope, of Prince Andrew needing to look for more dodgy deals. Do you know what I mean? Which no one wants.
Exactly. And I think when it comes to Andrew, probably some of the palace's biggest concerns is any sort of investigation into Andrew when he had that special trade envoy status and he was going around the world basically sort of greasing the wheels for deals for the UK, but also making sort of a back end deal for himself as well. We have Pitch at the Palace, which had sort of the same issue. And so I think Charles is trying to the best of his ability to try to mitigate Andrew and contain Andrew and sort of stem Andrew some sort of bad impulses to go and try to get money through various more nefarious means, you could say. And so I think Charles here is very, very much trying to manage Andrew to the best of his ability. And I think it is sort of great that Andrew is really going to be somewhat taken care of. I think it's a good thing for Charles to do. And I do find his placement at Sandringham very, very interesting. I was a little bit surprised that that's where he was going to go. So that is a bit
What
of
do you
something I
make of
wasn't
it?
expecting.
I mean, it's
I
where
thought it was
Prince Philip spent the last years of his life, wasn't it?
It was. And obviously, Catherine and William have Abner Hall up in Norfolk on the Sandringham estate as well. So I think it's something that can definitely be a unique and interesting situation. And so I'm fascinated by the idea that he'll be up there. Will he be neighbors with Catherine and William? That's sort of an interesting thought. And obviously, he would be there around Christmas time, but he's not allowed to go to any of the Christmas events really with the family. But it allows the girls to be close to their dad during those holidays. And so, in that respect, it's sort of nice. But yeah, it's Charles is in a tricky situation here because he can't throw his brother out on the streets. He doesn't want another Harry situation. So he does have to figure out where Andrew can really go. And I think he does pretty much achieve that here.
Okay, now I've come to the final 3 questions on this briefing document from Buckingham Palace. I actually think they're the most interesting in some ways. So let me just get to them now. What about Sarah Ferguson? Where will she live? Brutal response. Sarah Ferguson will make her own arrangements. She's gone. She's booted. She's out. That's what the demand from the public was for. Then the question that Buckingham Palace is posing to itself, who made this decision? These decisions have been the king's, given the serious lapses of judgment which his brother has shown. His Majesty has the support of the wider family, including the Prince of Wales. So the only other member of the royal family to be name-checked is Prince William, which backs up all of our reporting for some time, which is that his eldest son, the heir to the throne, has wanted harder action to be taken. And then this very sensitive question. Actually, I'll come to that in just one moment. First, to P. Diner, actually. Let's just talk about that. William name-checked specifically in this release from Buckingham Palace. It is very, very clear that he has called the shots here, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that is a good thing because a lot of people support William, and we know that William is the voice of reason. A lot of people support William. A lot of people want to just, have William do more things that he can, call on that have to happen within, the crown. And I think he has the people's support. And so you have to show that William is behind this because I think having it all on the king would be too much. I think he needs to be able to lean on William as somebody who has a hand in a lot of these decisions. I mean, he's the future king. And so it makes perfect sense. And I think having William behind it assures people that really this is coming, I believe, from William. The king is, in this instance, I believe, the figurehead because he's always wanted to do things differently. But William has always been the one that wanted to, have a harsher hand in everything. And now we're finally seeing it. So for me, it just looks like something that William has been able to put his hand behind. Officially, it's the king, but for sure, William is part of that.
And the last question in this briefing document from Buckingham Palace refers to what we were discussing earlier on. And again, you won't hear this discussed in the mainstream media. I think we've got to be transparent about it. And it's one of the reasons why I've tried to dial down a little bit of hysteria in the coverage too. There are now very real fears within the royal family that Andrew could end up doing something silly. And so the last question in this document reads, what do you mean by duty of care for the well-being and welfare of family members? And Buckingham Palace responds, it has obviously been a period of high media scrutiny and intense pressure on individuals. Private factors, including welfare, have formed a critical part of all family considerations. And Angela Levin, it's not hard to read between the lines there. There are now very obvious fears for Andrew's mental health. Some people will say they don't care and he doesn't deserve that consideration. But for King Charles, it is his brother. And I think it's very, very interesting, isn't it? As I say, I've reported in the past, he has been under psychiatric care in the past. Clearly, for any human being, this level of pressure, this level of scrutiny, the fact that he could be facing new investigations, the fact he could even one day be facing prison is going to absolutely screw someone's mental well-being. Does that matter, Angela? Is the palace right to raise it in this briefing document tonight?
I think the king is right. I mean, it's his brother, as you just say. And in a way, it's come to the top of what could happen now. And it's all going to crumble and fall apart. And all the things he's wanted to do and show off and be very important, he's lost. He's lost absolutely everything. And I think that you don't then actually try and make them happy and give them fun things to do. But I do think you have to watch their illness. And if something starts going wrong, or you see them wanting to hurt themselves in some way, you have to, you can't just leave it, can you? Because what's going on in his head and what he wanted to see of himself, he was a very arrogant man, and he wanted to think everybody should think that he was marvelous. He's now absolutely nothing, and he probably realizes that. And so if you have a member of your family who's not going to be too difficult to deal with, then I think it's a good idea. And can I just say here that this is also a problem with Harry. And I think that's one of the things where they may hold back on Harry because he's also unstable, mentally unstable.
And we've got a poll running, just to let you know, in the YouTube live chat. And the results are fascinating, actually, but you can keep voting. But what is your reaction to the decision by King Charles to strip Andrew of everything? 56% of people saying it's about right. 39% of people saying it doesn't go far enough. Just 5% of you saying it's too harsh. So, well, we've got all of our royal superstars on the special historic edition of Outspoken tonight. Angela Levin, our royal mastermind, the biographer of Prince Harry and Queen Camilla, Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network, royal YouTube sensation P. Diner, and joining us now as well from Florida is Lee Cohen. He is a foreign policy specialist and royal commentator who writes on royal affairs for Fox News, The Daily Telegraph, and The Spectator. Lee Cohen, bombshell news tonight. What's your immediate reaction?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Dan. It's an absolute pleasure to be in such esteemed company with Angela Levin and Brittany and P. Demetria and
Dinah.
P. Dinah. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I am a big fan, so it's great to be in your company and yours, of course, Dan. I mean, this is what I thought it was a watershed moment last week, what we saw. And this really is, kind of the guillotine coming down. And I think it's about right. I'm shocked at your poll, Dan, that so many people thought this doesn't go far enough, because I don't know really what's left to do. This man who, clearly the royal life was very important, is very important to the former Duke of York. And so, this is really, he's really a man without portfolio now. And, to be in a family at his age, to have come along his whole life in this system, this is really a very stark blow. And I think it's absolutely right, because as I've written about for the Spectator and others, monarchy is a compact with the people, and it will only continue to exist. Yes, there are constitutional backstops, but the monarchy will only continue to exist as long as it maintains the trust and the respect of the people. And I think that this move goes very far into showing that Charles is a good custodian of ensuring that the monarchy moving forward maintains the trust and respect of the people.
Okay, let's get to some reaction online now, because of course the whole world is talking about this. Roya Nika, who is the royal editor of the Sunday Times, very well connected with the palace, says this is seismic, undoubtedly one of the most radical moves by a monarch in modern history, arguably overdue. The king, with the Prince of Wales and the wider royal family support, read the runes, acknowledging the public would not continue to tolerate the Andrew status quo. From Canal Citadel, Prince William won again. Buckingham Palace has finally relented and just announced formally that they will start the proceedings to remove the titles and honours of Prince Andrew. Remember that King Charles's apologists sat there gaslighting that the king could not do it, that his hands were tied. No, King Charles did not want to do it. That is a huge difference. It took public pressure. It took Parliament deciding to defy the palace. It took Prince William. It took the monarchy being attacked. It took the king being heckled for him to finally relent. It took all this before we can get things done at Buckingham Palace. It's not a coincidence that on the day Prince William's decisive victory over the press is released, Buckingham Palace released that the king is being proactive. It's not a coincidence that Buckingham Palace released this on the day the October 2025 YouGov poll is released, showing Prince William continuing his reign at the top of the poll with 76 approval rating, followed by wife Catherine with 73%. There is one decisive man in that family that gets things done in the background quietly and succeeds at every operation he undertakes, and he needs no introduction. Not only will Andrew be out of Royal Lodge as William wanted, he will lose all titles and style as William wanted and no longer be seen with the royal family as William wanted. Ultimately, the winning never stops for this man. And of course, the court case that she was referring to was versus the French magazine. Robert Peston, the political editor of ITV News, says, it is this statement from the king about Andrew that I regard as truly remarkable, because it did not need to be said, and it is red hot with regal fury. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact he continues to deny the allegations against him. So some suggestion that maybe the royal family has moved from its previous position of believing Andrew's denials. And from Link Lauren, our friend Link Lauren, strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their titles next. Meghan and Harry sold out their family and lied on national TV for profit. If we're going to slim the monarchy down to essential characters, this is the crucial next step. And let's make sure Archie and Lily are removed from the line of succession as well. Has anyone laid eyes on them? Okay, we've got to talk about this now. So I want to get your reaction from all of you to this, because this has been done, P. Dinah, just by going to the Lord Chancellor, just by going to the Minister of Justice. So the terrifying thing, if you're Prince Harry and Meghan Markle now, is that Prince William could do this overnight. So there is now a very clear plan of how their titles will end up being stripped, I do believe, if King Charles doesn't have the balls to do it himself.
Absolutely. And this is what I was thinking when I first mentioned this. You can't say that they've removed the title for Andrew and didn't have in the thoughts about, well, what do we do also about Harry and Meghan? That was all a part of the plan. We just don't know about it yet. They're not going to just isolate and just call this for Andrew. They have got a plan for how it's going to happen with Meghan and Harry. You best be believing that. And I think this is a signal to them over in California, because look what's happened to now Andrew. And we also have to remember that Harry wants to come back in some way. He wants to try to be back in the UK, and Meghan doesn't. So perhaps Meghan or Harry is trying to make a deal because he knows what is going to happen. And to Angela Levin's comment about, Harry being a loose cannon, well, probably exactly that. He is making a deal because Meghan is going to be out. And so Harry is finding a way to keep himself back in so he doesn't end up like Andrew, because Meghan is going to do her own thing, right? So we have to look at it
Well,
in
we've
that
even
context.
seen the briefing today. Briefing today on the cover of Us Weekly is, and it's clearly been briefed by Meghan's team, is even further. She's going solo, everything's separate from Harry. So that briefing is fascinating, while Harry is obviously desperate to keep in the royal orbit. Now, Lee Cohen, you've been incredibly tough on this. And by the way, I love it and I completely agree with you. But you have now been advocating for some time for the king to be ruthless when it comes to taking away the titles of Harry and Meghan. Surely he now has a very clear path as to how he can do that, Lee.
Well, he does. And, it wasn't simply out of spite. I contend, Dan, that, Andrew's cringeworthy behavior really cast the worst bad light on himself and, by extension, the institution of the royal family. But that, he didn't intend malice to the institution the way that Harry and Meghan clearly set out to cause against them, with Harry's spare autobiography, with all of the Netflix episodes where they trash the royal family, because, obviously, as we can see, there's very little interest in them. They have very little talent beyond being, in Meghan's case, married into the royal family, and in Harry's case, born into the royal family. So what do they have? They have nothing. And therefore, that's why I feel, because of that intended malice, that they really go even farther. They have a vendetta, as I said to you when we spoke earlier in the week. And Prince Andrew didn't have a vendetta. His behavior, make no mistake, I'm not apologizing for it or seeking to mitigate it in any way, but it wasn't to seeking to do damage to his family or his country or the institution. And Harry's and Meghan's clearly were. And that's why I feel that they must absolutely be pursued in this way that Prince William and the King are blazing a trail for right now.
Brittany, huge pressure already coming in America. Megyn Kelly has just weighed in on this, saying, next up, the grifters in Montecito. So it really does feel like, for the monarchy to be protected now, that does have to happen. And we are in these quite extraordinary times, aren't we, where William seems to be getting his way much more. Charles has realized that what he had previously done was not enough. I mean, I would not be sitting comfortably right now if I was Harry or Meghan in Montecito.
No, I definitely imagine Meghan is quaking in her boots a bit, because her entire brand is based around the fact that she's the Duchess of Sussex and really nothing else. And so is their entire Hollywood career. This is definitely a huge red flag to them. I'm sure they are a little bit petrified right now, desperately trying to figure out what to do because they and their fans kind of thought they were untouchable. And that sort of was the problem with Andrew that started 30 years ago, is that he thought he was untouchable. And so the behavior just got worse and worse and worse over time until we get to this, basically the only option is to strip him of everything. And so I think for Charles, the big lesson here is that don't allow Harry and Meghan to become the next Andrew in 30 years or their kids. You need to sort of stop the bleeding now because Harry and Meghan are just going to get worse and worse and worse, especially as their various projects begin to fall apart, the money starts to dwindle. All they can do is throw the royal family under the bus. And even just in their baseball stunt on Tuesday going to the World Series, they happened to offend all of Canada, where Charles is head of state. And so Harry and Meghan, just because they are just devoid of any common sense, seem to constantly step in issues. And so this is Charles's opportunity to really make the tough decision here. And this will prove, I think, to Charles, does Harry really want a relationship with his father because he loves his father? Or is it just about securing the next book or Netflix deal? Because Harry should want a relationship with his father, whether or not he is a prince. And if he strips Harry of his place in the line of succession and his children, well, that pesky little thing about security also all of a sudden goes away for Harry and Meghan. So I think they are definitely in Montecito right now, having a little bit of a, scared session. They got scared the day before Halloween for sure. They're petrified.
Dan, can I just make a comment though to
Please.
Brittany's point? Absolutely, Brittany, because we've seen Meghan in interviews recently already jabbing at the royal family about, the stockings wearing. That was very much not me myself. She's not afraid to throw the royal family under a bus. She's not afraid to say these negative things now about the family that once embraced her. So she will continue to do these things. Harry's not doing it, right? But Meghan is, and she won't stop. She'll keep doing it. It will get worse and worse. Exactly to your point, Brittany.
Indeed, indeed. Breaking right now, Virginia Giuffre's family have just released this statement on Andrew, the man formerly known as Prince Andrew, to the BBC. Let me take you through it. Today, an ordinary American girl from an ordinary American family brought down a British prince with her truth and extraordinary courage. This is from her brother, Sky Roberts, and her sister-in-law, Amanda. Virginia Roberts Giuffre, our sister, a child when she was sexually assaulted by Andrew, never stopped fighting for accountability for what had happened to her and to countless other survivors like her. Today, she declares victory. We, her family, along with her survivor sisters, continue Virginia's battle and will not rest until the same accountability applies to all of the abusers connected to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Angela Levin, your reaction to that statement from the Giuffres?
Well, your heart goes out to the family, doesn't it? I mean, poor girl, that she's had such a terrible life. But I think that they shouldn't do it as something, that it's something that she's won. I think it's awful to think that. And we don't all know whether what she's written, how honest it all is, because there have been lots of mistakes. I mean, she's quite right about a lot of things, but not all of them. And I think that they're probably doing their best. But if we read about her and her husband, it's not a pretty story.
No, indeed. And I think that's such an important point, Angela. And again, one thing that I think I've been doing here on Outspoken is bringing some balance that we haven't seen through much of the mainstream media, because, Lee, she clearly was a very troubled soul. In her book, in her autobiography, she makes sex abuse claims against her own father, for example, who had previously spoken up to defend her. There were lapses in terms of her claims in court against Alan Dershowitz, for example, which had to be withdrawn. And another Epstein survivor was suing Virginia Giuffre, and indeed is still suing the Virginia Giuffre estate because of false claims that she claimed Virginia made against her. So is it fair to say that this is a victory for Virginia Giuffre? And, has it been wrong for people like Lady Victoria Harvey, good friend of mine, obviously, to question Giuffre's judgment?
Not at all, Dan. And I have to say, I fully agree with what Angela just said, but also I object to the wording of that statement fundamentally because it's really positioning. It's almost like you could say this about Meghan Markle. It's Meghan Markle's dream, those words, that an ordinary American girl, although Meghan's far from an ordinary American girl, but an ordinary American girl brings down a British prince. This isn't about, America versus Britain. It's not about that at all. And it's not about, this poor girl against the British royal family. That's exactly what the King and Prince William are trying to do, is to distance from the bad behavior of Andrew. And so, I object really very strongly to the positioning of that statement. And, as you said before, a lot of people, including Alan Dershowitz, have discredited a lot of the witness statements and the testimony of Virginia Giuffre. So,
well, yes, indeed. And I think another thing that, as we're all royalists here, we're all monarchists here. And what we've seen is the left, especially in the United Kingdom, use this scandal quite simply to try and destroy the British royal family. I mean, they're not trying to hide it. Republic, for example, already responding to this news. No sense of, Charles has done what we wanted, this must be really tough for that. No, because they are on a political campaign. So they're already writing, he literally won't be an ordinary person. He's moved from a mansion in Windsor to a mansion in Sandringham. He will never be an ordinary person. Ordinary people don't get away with being accused of sexual abuse. But that's the point, isn't it? It's an accusation. And then Graham Smith, who is the head of Republic, has reposted this from Beth Rigby, the political editor of Sly News, saying they still don't get it. He's accused of sexual offences and corruption. What silly title he has is irrelevant. Empty words from Charles on the victims if he won't agree to a full, open and genuine criminal investigation and an inquiry into what he and William knew and when. And so, Brittany, one of the interesting factors here is that you've seen it. I mean, you cover all of the European monarchies, and sometimes this is the problem with giving in, with throwing away traditions. Now, I that doesn't mean that I'm saying that Charles has necessarily done the wrong thing here, but the point that I'm making is that you're never going to do enough to appease these people. They want the end of the monarchy. That is what they are looking for.
Exactly, Dan. They are not going to be satisfied with really anything you do. So there's almost really no point in trying to appease any of these people because the entire point is that they want the monarchy gone. But when it comes to the case of Andrew and the criminality, I just don't think the evidence is there. I can't say how much of Virginia's testimony is accurate or inaccurate, but what we can say is that if there was hard proof of criminality in regards to her or somebody else, we don't have those specifics. Now, when it comes to maybe some of his financial dealings as a special envoy, that might be a different story. But an interesting comparison, you could say, in the broader royal community is the case in Norway of the crown princess's son. So he's not a blood royal, but he was raised within the royal household. His mother was single when she married him, and he was pulled up on criminal charges, and he's facing a trial with 32, some of them very, very serious criminal charges next year. Actually, some of them similar to what some people want to charge against Andrew. And so royals are not immune from criminal prosecution. And I think if there were some concrete, very hard facts here, Charles would, of course, allow the investigation to go through. But if you open the door to basically anything, anything that's sort of minute and completely unrelated gets dragged up. And especially when it comes to people who are anti-monarchists and Republicans, they will pick at anything. So best just to shut the door on that matter unless there's something really, really obvious for the police to investigate.
P. Dinah, I know you've got to go to your own stream shortly, but any final reaction from you?
I'm just really happy to see something happen that has, not so traditional, like something that we never thought could happen. It's finally happening. I think it's just showing us a sign of what is to come, and that we should prepare ourselves to see things that we've never seen before, get used to it, get ready, because I think it's going to be a new day when King William is finally on the throne. Happy to see it.
It is. It really is, isn't it? There's going to be some very interesting changes to come. I want to get to some of your feedback now. Thank you so much. Which Essence in the live chat on YouTube says, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't get Parliament to sign off on Harry and Meghan while Andrew was getting done. I'm eagerly awaiting that announcement. So are we. But what's interesting is it wasn't Parliament. It wasn't Parliament. It was simply David Lammy, the Justice Secretary. Just Me Here 123 says, it would have been better if the King would have shown some proactivity here, but no, they waited till the pressure was giant. This is just a reaction, not really a sign of goodwill from the King. Cindy Osborne says, now that they've started to remove Andrew's titles and styles, they just need to add Harry to the process. Just slip his name in. Exactly. Johnny Hawk. Oh, Johnny, you're funny. Andy and Fergie should go to Calais and return on a dinghy. They can live in a 4-star hotel for life. Oh, true. That's UK politics for you. Cat210 says he should be prosecuted for all of his crimes. Of course, he denies them. And the royal family should be kept accountable for covering up all his doings. Nikki Griffiths for 5417 says, I'm tired of people saying it's unfair because he's not been tried in court. Why has he not received charges? Oh, yes, because the police backed off because of who he is. So that to date means nothing. Nikki New 346 says allegedly Fergie might go to Australia with her sister, who has flown over to be with her. Mally 9037 says Andrew has money and they all have private money, but I don't see a problem with having a property on the royal estate. He needs protection because of this. At least it will be at no extra cost. But Jocelyn Scott 46 says Andrew has not lost everything. He has his family. He has friends. He is going to live in a safe, comfortable, lovely home. Perhaps now he will find the Lord. And Seaberry 6751, who is a member of Outspoken Plus on YouTube, says it was brilliant to let the sisters keep their titles. It's good leverage to keep this ridiculous family quiet. No tell-all books if the women are to stay princesses. Now, Angela, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Is there now leverage? Do Beatrice and Eugenie have leverage now over... do William and Charles have leverage over Beatrice and Eugenie to make sure that they continue to keep Andrew and Fergie in line, given they have retained their titles?
Well, I mean, the two daughters are very much sort of looking after their father, particularly the older one, because she went to try to persuade him not to actually do anything, talking to the BBC about his life. She really worked hard on that. And I think now that perhaps he will listen to them talking. But I don't think they will do much about it. I think they will just get on with their own lives and stay as far away as possible. I mean, usually she said that she couldn't even look at any of the papers at the weekend. She couldn't bear to see it. She didn't want to know. And I think that's probably how they both feel at the moment. And it must be very difficult to actually want to go and help your parents who have behaved so abominably. It's difficult, isn't it? I don't know whether you can ever get over that. And they might just as well want to stay away quite a bit and not actually be people who go over and tell their parents what to do. I mean, they're grown-ups now. They actually have to look after themselves and not bring all this muck into their lives.
Indeed. Joining us, and just a reminder who we've got on our incredible Royal Superstar panel tonight. You were just hearing from Angela Levin. She is, of course, the biographer of Prince Harry and Queen Camilla, our royal mastermind. Brittany, who is editor of the brilliant Royal News Network. The foreign affairs expert and royal commentator Lee Cohen. You will often read his words about the royal family on Fox News, in the Daily Telegraph, and in the Spectator. And joining us again now, she was on our main show tonight, and I wasn't expecting to see her back so soon. But of course, the seismic breaking news came just after 7. Lauren Lunn Farrow, she's a royal commentator, long-term PR veteran, now the host of the YouTube channel Lauren the Insider. So, Lauren, I mean, we were talking about Fergie being in meltdown and being sort of dumped from everywhere. We were talking earlier as well about this private prosecution that's being brought by the Republic Group. But this bombshell wasn't expected at 7 p.m. Your reaction?
I think this is fantastic because this is giving us all so much hope. You know, King Charles has not had a reign like we may have hoped. And I think this is a really clear sign that this behavior will not be tolerated in the royal family. And, you know, he has taken exactly the right action on this. I do believe that it is because of Prince William that this has been the result that has come, because we know that Andrew did release a statement recently saying that, you know, he had discussed with the king and this was the action that was being taken. He was not going to use his titles. But we, the public, have a lot more power now than we have had before. And the monarchy are listening to our voices. And I think this is a really positive sign.
They're panicking though, aren't they, Lauren? And sometimes that is a sign of weakness. I mean, if you look at what happened in the days after Princess Diana's death, this is pretty similar. A monarch who had his head in the sand for a particular period. And what's interesting is I'm even seeing some commentators, right-wing commentators on X, who I definitely respect, starting to sort of raise things that as a monarchist, as a royalist, I'm not liking. Like, look at this from Ben on Wine in the past few moments. For the very first time in my life, and to say this as an ardent monarchist surprises even myself, but I believe the royal family may end under this current king. And of course, Lauren, we've seen the cover of the New Statesman, the left-wing New Statesman, today is advocating for the British monarchy to end when King Charles dies. So do you think that this decision from Charles tonight will sort of put a stop to that discussion? Like, is it enough to keep the Republican movement at bay?
No, they will keep peddling false narratives because that is what they do. But I think this action is action from William. It is William that has made this happen, because let's remember, it was, you know, all of Andrew's behavior for many years has gone unnoticed to some degree. And then we had Andrew's statement come out, and it was that hopefully that's enough, you know, let's do the bare minimum. And that very much is, to me, in line with how Charles would react. But then for this to go a step further, you know, William is trying to preserve the monarchy. He understands the frustrations of the public. We are living in a two-tier society where, you know, the divide between the elites and us normal people is so great. And so William has understood the severity of this. And, you know, the way in which Andrew has behaved, not even just with the allegations that Virginia Giuffre has made, which are shocking, but the way he has handled himself consistently for decades is disgusting. And I think, you know, Andrew Loney should be having a large glass of wine tonight, because I do believe a lot of his hard work about showing us exactly what has gone on and giving us transparency regarding Andrew and Sarah's behavior, you know, we are a lot more knowledgeable now because of Andrew's book.
Absolutely. And I was in contact with him earlier tonight, actually, just saying, wow, that was a historic book. Absolutely. Well, look, you're all incredible. You're all absolutely incredible. It is coming up to 9 o'clock in the UK, and you're all going to kill me because we can't go on beyond that because, of course, the Traitors starts. If you're not in the United Kingdom, you don't know what I'm talking about. You'll get it. But let's just wrap by going through this historic statement again, just to remind you what King Charles put on the record. And if you do want to go back, you will hear the secret briefing from Buckingham Palace, which I've provided over the course of the show. But this statement was released just 2 hours ago. His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles, and honours of Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. His lease on Royal Lodge has to date provided him with legal protection to continue in residence. Formal notice has now been served to surrender the lease, and he will move to alternative private accommodation. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. And of course, we will have much more of this on Outspoken tomorrow. And please do sign up to my Substack, www.outspoken.live, because we'll have a special edition of the Royal Uncancelled After Show coming tomorrow, www.outspoken.live. Thank you so much to my Royal Superstar panel, the incredible Angela Levin, Lee Cohen, and Brittany from the Royal News Network from the US, and Lauren, the insider who has pulled double duty today. What an astonishing night, a historic night. And of course, we will keep across this. Thank you so much for your company. And remember, I promise to always keep fighting for you.